I'm Katie Barlow. Coming up this week on In the Courts, the newly confirmed U.S. Attorney for D.C. says she has a very full plate and not enough help. Why Jeanine Pirro says her office is short-staffed and why she says the D.C. Council is making her job more difficult. Plus, some big names subpoenaed in the Jeffrey Epstein case, why the Justice Department is going after the Clintons and many others. And we'll tell you how you can keep your messy divorce and child custody battles out of court. It's been a busy week in the court. Let's get to it. Off the top, fresh off her Senate confirmation, D.C.'s new U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro had a busy week. A reminder, the U.S. Attorney for D.C. is the only U.S. attorney in the nation responsible for prosecuting both federal and local crimes. So not only is the office saddled with more responsibility than any other, they appear to be down significant resources. Pirro said in an interview on Fox News she needs 90 prosecutors in her office and 60 investigators.
What's going on? 90 prosecutors,
Why is that happening?
60 investigators and paralegals, because nobody cared. I'm telling you right now, nobody cared enough to make sure that office was running. I'm going to have that office running. If you want a job in the nation's capital, in the premier office, the largest U.S. Attorney's office, contact me at Jeanine.Pirro@USDOJ.net.
Well, now you've got her email address, so if you want to submit an application, you can. This comes, by the way, after her predecessor, Ed Martin, fired more than a dozen prosecutors in that office who were assigned to work on January 6th cases. Pirro touted the prosecutors who stayed behind, saying she has great prosecutors in her office, and she's proud of them. She also lamented not being able to prosecute young people in the district, blaming the D.C. Council for coddling them instead of delivering consequences. She called for lowering the age of criminal responsibility to 14. And right now in the district, a 15-year-old can be tried as an adult for certain violent crimes, including murder, but it's not automatic. The U.S. Attorney's Office has to work with the D.C. Attorney General to determine what happens in those juvenile cases. Now, Pirro says she speaks with AG Brian Schwal, but she talks with Mayor Muriel Bowser more, and she praised Bowser for wanting to work with her office. Pirro also called for automatic jail time for having an illegal gun, just possession alone, and she criticized D.C. judges for releasing people who are convicted of violent crimes back into the community. When asked whether there would be a federal government takeover of the nation's capital, she said it's entirely up to the president, and she fully supports whatever he wants to do. And speaking up, there's a renewed focus on federal oversight of the district this week after a 19-year-old former staffer with the Department of Government Efficiency was badly beaten on 14th Street in Northwest during an attempted carjacking, according to police. Two 15-year-olds were taken into custody related to the incident, and Trump responded by threatening to federalize the district. On Thursday, the mayor's office acknowledged there would be an increased federal law enforcement presence in D.C. D.C. still operates under home rule, which is a law that was passed by Congress back in 1973 that empowers the district and its residents to govern themselves to an extent with their own elected representatives. There's a bill in Congress right now for a federal D.C. takeover. Tennessee GOP Congressman Andy Ogles introduced the Bowser Act, which actually stands for Bringing Oversight to Washington and Safety to Every Resident, to appeal D.C. home rule and restore congressional authority over the district. Residents on Swan Street in D.C., where the Doge staffer was attacked nearby, say they do not feel unsafe in their neighborhood.
I love it. I've never felt unsafe, and I'm a tiny blonde 5'2" woman. I've never felt unsafe in this neighborhood at all, ever.
It's not the safest neighborhood in D.C., but it's definitely not one of the most dangerous.
I think it's one of the things that happen in this city. I feel safe around here.
For the feds to take over, they would need Congress to pass the Bowser Act or to repeal home rule some other way, and that requires a filibuster-proof majority that Republicans do not have right now. But Congress can pull on D.C.'s purse strings when they pass funding legislation. Meantime, Pirro's office announced federal hate crime charges against the man accused of shooting and killing Israeli embassy staff members Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. That was last May outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in downtown D.C. Elias Rodriguez is now facing federal charges that could come with the death penalty if he gets convicted. According to the indictment, Rodriguez yelled "Free Palestine" during and after the shooting. DOJ's Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, The AAG we talked about last week, who's opened multiple investigations into George Mason University, attended the press conference with Pirro. She's the one charged with approving all hate crime prosecutions.
I hope this beginning of this process brings some comfort to the many people in this community who have approached the Department of Justice and expressed their deep concern for their safety. I think no one can claim that this is not a serious problem here in our district right now, and it is embarrassing as an American to see that.
The words hate crime get misused sometimes. Some may think that's a phrase, the phrase hate crime, that's just used to describe certain behavior. But, in fact, it's a title of a section of the U.S. Criminal Code. 18 U.S.C. 249, also known as the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Act, named after a gay man and a black man separately murdered out of hate, makes it a crime to cause someone bodily injury based on actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. Now, often hate crimes are actually really difficult to prosecute because you have to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt what's inside someone's mind when they committed the crime. The House Oversight Committee, chaired by Kentucky's Republican Congressman Jim Comer, subpoenaed former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and 8 top law enforcement officials this week to testify about their knowledge of crimes perpetrated by Jeffrey Epstein. The list includes former FBI directors Jim Comey and Robert Mueller, as well as former attorneys general Merrick Garland, Bill Barr, Jeff Sessions, and Alberto Gonzales. A bipartisan majority of the committee also agreed to subpoena the Justice Department for records related to Epstein. You can see the subpoena right here. They also asked for DOJ to send over all related records for Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal case. Maxwell recently sat for over 9 hours in an interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and she's currently asking the Supreme Court to toss her criminal conviction based on a provision in Epstein's plea deal with Florida prosecutors that carved out immunity for certain co-conspirators, but didn't explicitly name Maxwell. DOJ has requested a judge unseal the grand jury testimony in both Maxwell and Epstein's cases as a way to stem the tide of criticism they've received after announcing that there were no so-called Epstein files to release after years of promising to release them. But Maxwell opposed the release of grand jury testimony in part because she's challenging her conviction right now. Her lawyers told a judge that it would be unfair because she's actively litigating her criminal case and she has no idea what's in those grand jury materials. And the Justice Department has also subpoenaed New York's Attorney General. The DOJ investigating whether she violated President Trump's civil rights. Letitia James previously took Trump to court over alleged fraud in his business dealings. The president is currently appealing the $454 million judgment that she won against him. He and his lawyers have accused James of going after him for political purposes, and she denies those claims. Meantime, the former Deputy U.S. Attorney Desi Grace, who was tapped by New Jersey federal judges to take over for Trump's former personal lawyer and interim New Jersey U.S. Attorney Alina Habba, is now challenging her removal. She was fired in July after judges selected her to take over the office. DOJ then reinstalled Habba as acting U.S. Attorney. Bloomberg Law reports Grace filed an appeal with the Merit Systems Protection Board. That's a quasi-independent executive agency. And although the Supreme Court just cleared the way for Trump to fire Democrats on the board and install his own picks, they still are considered somewhat independent. Nonetheless, the agency is tasked with protecting federal workers. And according to Bloomberg, Grace says she received outstanding reviews as a federal worker on her performance before she was summarily fired, which she calls, quote, completely unjustified. And in our area, a win in court for a conservative group in Northern Virginia. America First Legal is representing a client in a case about Fairfax County Schools' bathroom policy. That client, who goes by Jane Doe, says the policy that allows boys to use girls' bathroom violates her rights under the Virginia Constitution. A judge ruled against the district, who was seeking to get it tossed for now. That means the case will continue at least on to the merits. And a major update in a case that captured the DMV. Katherine Hoggle appeared in court in Montgomery County. On the other side of the dais, John McCarthy, Montgomery County State's attorney, who has decided to prosecute the case himself, it appears. McCarthy pushed to keep her behind bars pending trial, and he won that bid. He also dropped a bombshell in open court, according to Fox 5's Bob Barnard, about what Katherine Hoggle apparently admitted to in the hours after her children's initial disappearance.
At that point in time, she made a comment to a woman that was in those therapy sessions with her that she had strangled her children. We had not said that before. That was not relevant to competency. It was relevant to public safety.
Katherine Hoggle, now 38 years old, had been held in maximum security state psychiatric hospital for years before being released to a halfway house last month. Prosecutors told the judge Hoggle was released without conditions and was being watched by police as she went about freely in the community on the Eastern Shore. She now faces new murder charges in the September 2014 disappearance of her two youngest children, Sarah, age 3, Jacob, age 2. Their bodies were never recovered. Troy Turner is the missing children's father.
The main thing for me is my kids. I honestly, obviously, if there's justice that can be involved, then you want justice for your children, obviously. But number one is finding my children.
Competency requires two things: an ability to understand the legal process and an ability to assist with your legal defense. It is not that you are a potted plant sitting in the corner of a room drooling on yourself. That is not the definition of incompetency.
Prosecutors say her competency has improved along with her mental health, and she should stand trial. A doctor will make the final call there. Barnard also reports that McCarthy told the judge something we hadn't heard before, that around the time of Hoggle's arrest, police found a drawing in a trash can. The implication being that she may have strangled Sarah and Jacob and placed them in a trash bin of some sort. Coming up, divorce, especially with kids, can be messy, but my next guest says you don't have to go to court over it. What she has to say coming up.